Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Brian. For those of you who are new, thank you so much for joining me. Really means a lot. Thank you to all the people that have watched my videos, and thank you to all of the new subscribers. Really means a lot that I can actually reach people and connect with people, and it feels really good to just connect with others. And so, thank you guys so much for joining me um, today. I wanted to talk about spirit guides and just kind of how spirit guides, from my perspective, are seen and kind of how I understand them. So most people have a relationship with their spirit guides that is a relationship of the spirit guide being outside of them. So it would be as if I'm speaking to you now. You would communicate with this guide, kind of in a way that is, it's outside of you. But from my perspective, these are aspects of the absolute, which is you. And so at the end of the day, they're technically still part of you. They're not actually outside of you. And so I don't experience my spirit guides in that type of connection or that type of way. So it's not as if I hear my spirit guides talking to me clear in my mind and we conversate. Like, I don't have that. For me, it's more or less I can feel them kind of setting up synchronicities in ways, and they kind of each aspect that I have communicated with or that I'm familiar with, that I work with, communicates in kind of its own way, and so I can kind of discern which aspect it is. But these are still aspects that we need to understand. Only humans define who we are. So, from a higher perspective, it's still the absolute. It's just an aspect of the absolute. And by using names or labeling these guides or these aspects of self from the absolute's perspective, we essentially are kind of limiting their own perspective and in the ways that they can assist us. And so, from that higher perspective, truly, spirit guides don't really have names. They don't really have identities. They're beyond that. That's just something that we as humans kind of take part in here in the third dimension, uh, or fourth, 40, whatever you want to call it, I guess. But technically, most of humanity is still in this third dimension. And so that's just kind of a thing that we do. We like to label, we like to define, we like to name things. But at the end of the day, in all honesty, guides are aspects of the absolute, and they're not limited in the forms and the ways that they can help us. And I think that that's important to understand because it really opens the door to connecting with something so much greater. Now, if you have, if your relationship with your guides is different, if you do have a relationship where they are outside of you, then there's nothing wrong with that. And I would encourage you to do what feels right. Um, but in my case, I don't experience that with my guides. For me, it's kind of more or less I have a connection with them where I see them as aspects of myself, and I can connect with these aspects, and I can allow their perspective to trickle down into my own, and both my spirit guide's perspective or my higher self's perspective alongside my egoic personality perspective are able to mingle and almost co-create in a way in which I can evolve my perspective and I can see things from a perspective that neither one can see by themselves. So, and that's another thing I kind of want to touch upon is this idea of always higher perspective being superior in some way. Um, I do think there is somewhat of an association of higher perspectives being synonymous with better and lower perspectives being synonymous with worse, right? We're thinking lower perspective, thinking negativity, negative experiences, negative perceptions, negative emotions. But that's not always the case. And so, you as a personality here on Earth, you have a perspective that is unique, and it is an individual perspective that only you can have, okay? And so it's a valuable perspective. And now the idea isn't to say that this is more important or less important. At the end of the day, nothing is more or less important. But I at least want to drive home the fact that your perspective as a ego personality is important because it allows these aspects of the absolute, your higher self, your soul, these spirit guide aspects that you may work with, it allows them to use your perspective in a way that expands their own, right? You can't go higher without first integrating the lower. And I feel like that is something I need to say because I feel too often we ignore these lower aspects and we inadvertently create shadows. But in all honesty, in order to go higher and to expand, we must first go lower, accept and integrate, and then we can kind of blossom and branch out. And that's the beauty of working with a spirit guide in the way in which you see it as an aspect of yourself, of the absolute, because you're connecting with it in a way in which you are inheriting their perspective and letting it mingle with your own perspective, which creates an entirely new, unique perspective that is wholly you and it is only yours. And again, this is going to be, a big help just in your overall integration of these higher perspectives that we so often talk about embodying. And so it's not that you should think of your perspective as a personality here on earth as any is worse or lower or anything like that. You should honor it and see it as divine and love that. And you can also use these perspectives of your spirit guides or these aspects of the absolute that are aiding you and helping you. You can use those to let them mingle with your own and create something entirely new and to create a perspective that is more correct and more true for you. And so that's kind of how I interact with my guides. That I don't hear them whispering in my ear. I don't hear, I don't have conversations with them. More or less, I get a feeling, and I can feel a shift and a change within my own perspective. And it's not as if I lose my perspective as a ego personality. It's more or less that it kind of merges with that, and it creates a perspective that is much more broad. And for me, that's how I communicate with my guides. Personally, I haven't really named my guides because they don't really have identities. They're not really, we can give them names if we like, but from base reality, like there are no identities. It's an identity of no identity. These are just aspects that we as humans have created. These are archetypes that we have created and that we are labeling and defining these guides or aspects of the absolute with. And so it's up to you how you want to go about it. I choose to not really name them or label them because I feel as if to label is to limit. And so while I don't actually really have names for my guides, I can feel the difference when I'm working with one over the other. There's kind of a shift that happens within my own consciousness, within my own perspective, and I feel as if each one kind of brings its own unique flavor. And so in my mind, I have supposed archetypes for them, but I don't really name them or label them. And I don't really have that perspective of them being outside of me because I understand them to be aspects of myself, aspects that exist within base reality as the absolute. And it kind of leaves this door open to allow it to take whichever form you like. It's up to you. You are the creator. You are creative inherently. And there's no wrong way to go about it. So, again, if you have that type of relationship with your guides where you do communicate with them in a student, mentor, or pupil, teacher type of role, then I think that's great. And you do what is ever most comfortable for you. But from a perspective of oneness, I at least wanted to kind of share my understanding of spirit guides and how we can work with them to help further our own spiritual growth and to further our own expansion. And that's kind of the way that I see it. Is I see these as aspects of the absolute, this identity that is you. And at the end of the day, you will encounter yourself time and time again. And each and every aspect you encounter is still you. And when you can see it as being something within, it makes it a lot easier to integrate these perspectives, these greater points of awareness, and these greater, higher consciousnesses that exist. When you can understand it as being something within you and not outside of you, it makes it that much easier to connect to it and to integrate it and to be whole. And so I'm going to leave you here with that today. Thank you so much for joining me. Please like, share, subscribe, and do your thing. And hopefully, I will see you guys in the next one. All right. Love you. Bye.